Probably streaming.
Yeah.
Can you record? No. In case it's no.
All right, so
Stream or
in
nothing.
true fashion, we're 5 minutes late, but we'll deal with that. I wanted to welcome everybody to come, or for coming tonight. Thank you all for being here. I just have a few things to go over as we're getting started here, just to make sure that things run smoothly. A few housekeeping items. So first of all, we're all here because we care about the future of the church, and we're all looking forward to having this open question and answer period with our very special guest today. I want to send a special thank you to CWM President Steve Thomson for being here, CEM President Kerry for being here, Bishop of Canada Dar Shepherdson, and Apostle Art Smith. They're going to be here to help answer our questions and clear our minds of some thoughts that we may have. And once again, a great thank you to everybody who's taken the time tonight to be here with us. I'll take a brief moment to introduce myself. My name is Danica Williams, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm going to be sort of emceeing tonight. Is there any way to fix that echo?
Yeah, so it's try again.
It's just an echo of my voice.
Okay, now?
So I'm going to be emceeing tonight and kind of helping us flow through the evening. I'll also be the one that's voicing the questions that people are writing in for us today. We have people joining us via a couple of different channels. We've got web conferencing, as you see up here on the screen. And if you're connecting online and your faces are on our screen, and if you're connected online and your faces aren't on the screen, most of you are on GoToMeeting right now, which is our web conferencing device that we're using. We also have people connecting via Ustream, which is just a live streaming channel that we have online. So it's less interactive. Oh, we've got 30?
Yeah.
30 on Ustream. How many do we have on GoToMeeting right now?
No idea.
No idea. John, I'll find out. So we've got lots of people joining us from different channels. We also have people who are here with us today. And we've also had the opportunity for people to send in questions ahead of time. There's several ways that we'll be answering questions, that we'll be reading off questions that people have submitted. So there are a couple channels for people to do that. We have the GoToMeeting chat section, and that'll be moderated by Rochelle Smalden, who's joining us from BC. We're also monitoring our email, and that email is communityplaceplus, every word spelled out, all one word, at gmail.com, and Heather Huffman's going to be moderating that for us. We also have the option for guests to call in with their answers, and Tiona Taylor is monitoring that. The phone number for this, and I'm going to say it a couple times throughout the night, so if I have to interrupt things to say our number again, it's just so that people know to call using that number. And the number for this is 416-845-5003. So if you'd like to call in with a question, Tiona Taylor is going to be writing those down, and so that we can answer those questions. We also have questions that were collected throughout the past couple weeks, I believe. Community members were welcome to send their questions in to Emily Hatch at CEM, and she's been collecting those, and we also have those here with us tonight. And we also have the option of people answering questions in person here. So if you're here in person, we have a microphone at the middle of the aisle there. And if you do have something that you'd like to ask, simply walk up to the mic. You might have to wait a little while as we answer a couple questions, and then you'll be said that you can say your piece. If there's more than one person at the microphone, just form a line behind. I'll do my best to answer or to ask questions in the order that they come in, and making sure that I'm switching between each channel as we go along. Now, if any of you have ever connected to a Community Place online gathering, you've heard this spiel lots of times, but I'm going to go through it again tonight. In our trial and error as far as making things happen online in this way, we found a couple guidelines that help us to have things run smoothly, so I'm going to go over those with you now. For those of us joining us on GoToMeeting, Sean is our moderator for GoToMeeting, and he's kind of unmuting and muting us as we go. Please, if you're connecting now, do not unmute yourself. Sean will take care of that. He'll unmute you when it's your time to speak or ask your question. Please keep the chat section free of clutter. So on GoToMeeting, there is a chat section on the side, and it's tempting to say, oh, hey, if you recognize a name that's popped up on the list there, but we just ask that you keep that free of clutter so that when people want to share, they can say so, or if they want to type in their question, they're welcome to do that as well. If you do have a question you'd like to ask and you're on GoToMeeting, there's two ways you can do that. You can either write out your question in full in the chat section, And who is it that's moderating that?
Rochelle.
Rochelle, right. So Rochelle will be able to type that up, send it to me, and then I'll be able to read that out for you. You also have the option to say, I would like to ask a question, in which case Sean will unmute you, and you'll be able to actually voice your question yourself via the online chat. When someone begins to speak online, first ask, am I coming in clear, or can everybody hear me? And then that way, everybody who's here on camera, we have a job, and our job is just to give the thumbs up if we can hear them properly. So just hold up your thumbs, and that would mean that they're coming in clearly, and then they can voice their question. For those of us joining here in person, like I said, we've got the microphone at the front, and that's where you'll be able to ask your questions in front of everybody, and we'll have our lovely panel here to answer those for us. And so I believe that's all the housekeeping we have for the beginning. We're going to start off with a hymn today. We have, I think there should be hymns in front of you there, hymnals. We're going to be opening up to 157. 151? 151. 151.
Gracious Lord, this actually is an exciting evening to come together across Canada to be one. To have the technology that enables us to share in a way that is the way of the future. And we are thankful for each one who has been a part of the orchestration of making this a possibility. And we recognize the breadth of the demographics that are engaged in this evening's efforts to share with one another the important questions before us. And so, Lord, we come in peace to that quiet center, and we recognize that you are with us, that we are a part of your work, the community of Christ has been called apart to bring Christ's mission into being. And so we recognize that even though there has been daunting news that we have faced most recently, that we still see the glass half full, 3/4 full. We recognize that there is work that we are engaged in already that is changing the course in Canada and abroad of your workings within your people as we respond, as we live out the mission prayer in our lives. We are thankful for
Focus our minds even more so. We've got a video that we'd like to share. And for those of us joining online, we'll be posting the link in the GoToMeeting chat section. You can click on it and listen to it, and if that's the case, make sure that you mute us. For people who would like to watch it on our screen, remain having us unmuted, and you'll be able to see and hear the video on this end as well. Oh, and if you're joining from Ustream, you'll be able to watch it as well from our perspective.
Can't get any sound.
What?
I said, I can't get any sound.
You want me to do it? Armando?
Yep.
Kerry to give us our, is it Kerry or Art?
I think Art.
Art, for our opening address.
Thank you, Danica. Thank you, everyone who is here in this building, who I can see, and thank you to those who are connected from across Canada, who some of you I can see a little bit on a computer screen that is several feet in front of me, and you're very tiny, but I know you're out there. Yes. I want to read just a little bit of scripture. It's actually from the book of Isaiah. It's something very old, but it's also the scripture, one of the scriptures that is recommended for us for this Sunday, coming up the 5th Sunday of Lent. And it seems kind of right for tonight. It's Isaiah chapter 43, starting at verse 16. And I'm reading from the Message. This is what God says. The God who builds a road right through the ocean, who carves a path through pounding waves. Forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert. Be present. I'm about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? There it is. I'm making a road through the desert, rivers in the Badlands. Wild animals will say thank you. The coyotes and the buzzards, because I provided water in the desert, rivers through the sun-baked earth, drinking water for the people I chose, the people I made, especially for myself, a people custom-made to praise me. I love the scripture because, well, not just because it says not to think about the things that have happened. And oh, it would be very, very tempting to read a scripture like this and to use that to justify putting some unpleasant things out of my mind today. But it's really not that at all that the scripture is trying to get at. The scripture is not actually asking them to forget about the unpleasant things of the exile and the captivity that they've been living with. The scripture is crazier than that. It begins reminding them about the single most amazing thing that God has ever done for them, and that was the bringing them out of slavery in Egypt, the parting of the waters, the opening of a highway through the waters where people could walk. It was the one big historical amazing thing that God had done for the people of Israel. And God says to the people of Israel in captivity, just forget about that. Because I have in mind to do something different, something new. We're going to twist things a little bit, and instead of a dry pathway through wetlands, I'm going to open up water in the desert. We're going to have water where there was no water. And it's as if God is saying, if you think you've got me figured out, if you think you understand the miracles, the kinds of miracles that I am able to lead you through, you have another thing coming. Because I am a God that is full of surprises. And when you think you are out of options, there are options. And when you think you know the kind of good that I do, I've got good in mind that you haven't even thought of yet. So here we are, in the middle of a rather challenging time. We've just finished with a year of budget downsizing and staff reductions, and for some of us, it's been kind of demoralizing. And yet, here we go again. It's crazy. And what is crazy for me is that in spite of all the tough news and the bad news and the challenging news, I have never, in all my life in Community of Christ, been so excited about the possibilities that are before us. I have never, in all my life, experienced so many people in the United States and in Canada. I mean, I'm not talking about Africa or South America. I'm talking about the United States and Canada. Never in my life have I experienced so many people making inquiries, asking about Community of Christ, coming and visiting spontaneously Community of Christ congregations because they are curious, because they have heard about our enduring principles, about our mission, about our personality as a church. I have never seen in all my lifetime so many people coming to check out Community of Christ. Right here in this part of Ontario, we have all sorts of creative experiments going on that are connecting people to Community of Christ in amazing new ways. The kinds of things that when I'm walking in the hallway in the temple and people ask me how things were on my trip to Canada, and I say, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. 190 people, last time I heard, that was last month, 190 people, members of the Williams Cafe meetup that Community of Christ has organized down in Hamilton for people to come out and engage in meaningful conversation and to share and to ask deep questions. Amazing. Talk to Robin Linkart, or talk to John Hamer, who's sitting here in the back, about how many conversations he has on an average week, or maybe an average day. People writing to ask about Community of Christ. Someone told me in certain circles, Community of Christ has become the cool uncle that everybody kind of wants to go and stand beside and learn a little bit more about what they're like. God seems to have amazing ideas, stuff that we, maybe I, a number of years ago at least, had never even imagined. Forget about those old miracles, walking through parted waters. God has new stuff in mind, water springing up in the desert that you have maybe not even imagined yet. I wish God would just go ahead and do it all by God's self. But for some reason, God seems to have this stubborn idea that we are meant to be involved in this water springing up in the desert. We are supposed to be collaborators, and so that means we have to be praying the mission prayer and trying to be fully awake to the possibilities. It means that we have to ask ourselves tough questions. It means we have to manage the money. And that can be an interesting challenge at times. We have a chance tonight to answer some questions, and I can talk a little bit about how we got into this mess that we're in, but unfortunately, or fortunately, the how we're going to get out of the mess we're in is kind of up to us. I am kind of crazy optimistic. I don't think the glass is half full. I don't think it is 3/4 full. I think in Community of Christ, the glass continues to overflow and to flood onto the table and down onto the floor. And I hope that you're ready to put your wading boots on. Because we are invited to overcome the challenges that are before us right now and to go wading out in the desert. And there are coyotes and buzzards out there that are thankful for the water. It's going to be fun. So, Danica is going to help us, I think, with questions.
Yes, so,
Let me interject for a second. The house computer is frozen,
okay.
so we're going to get it restarted, but the feed to them is okay. So we'll restart, and you can continue with the questions that we have.
No, because the sound input is coming from the frozen computer.
As he said.
So we need 2 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna take a short 2-minute recess.
Don't go
anywhere. Just as we make sure that when it comes time to open the floor to questions, that those on GoToMeeting are able to. And then we'll read it out. Or they can write in, I'd like to speak, and then we will unmute them in that order, and then they're able to voice their questions by themselves. We also have, again, as I mentioned, email with Heather, and she's going to be answering copying questions from your emails into the document that I'll be reading from. The email that you can send all those to, for those of us on stream, it's Community Place Plus, every word spelled out, all stuck together as one word, at gmail.com. So that's communityplaceplus@gmail.com, and Heather will be monitoring that. We also have the phone with Tiona Taylor, so she's going to be answering your calls and recording your questions, and again, submitting them to the document that I'll be reading from. If you'd like to call in with your questions, the number is 416-845-5003. And then again, in person, we have our microphone here, and if you're unable to come to the microphone, just put up your hand and we'll have somebody walk over there with it. Let's see. So I think, would it be okay if can they hear us online at all?
They can hear you a little bit.
Okay.
I only need 30 more seconds.
Okay. Think about your questions for 30 seconds, and then we'll be back on in a moment.
You could hum a song.
Oh, and I should also mention that I will be reading the questions word for word as they're submitted. So if you are writing in questions or calling in with questions, make sure that you're articulate, and that if I say them, it'll come out the way that you want them to. And that way we can get the most accurate interpretation of what it is that I'd like to ask you. We're almost ready, I
2 more
think.
seconds.
Ready?
2 more seconds.
2 more seconds. That's Sean's speak for 15.
Ah.
I've learned that being married to him now.
Okay, we should be good. We might want to run a quick.
All right. If you're on GoToMeeting, can you hear us speaking? Can we get a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just going to go over the GoToMeeting rules once more, just because they're now connected. So for everybody on GoToMeeting, the process will be that you can use the chat section there to either write out your question word for word, and we'll have it plugged into the document here that I'll be reading from, or you can write in that you would like to speak, and then we will unmute you accordingly when it's your time to chat, and I'll introduce you and make sure that you know that you're up. And remember, if you're about to speak, just make sure that you ask, can everybody hear me? And we'll give you the thumbs up on our end to make sure that you can be heard. And as I mentioned, I'll be reading out the questions word for word as they're submitted to us. So just keep that in mind when you're submitting your questions. All right, are we ready, panelists? Excitement, I can see it. Okay, so we're going to start out here with a question that was submitted ahead of time. So this is a question that Emily Hatch has documented for us and sent us our way, just to kind of get us started. It's a two-parter, and this is what it says. I would like to know how much has been pledged or donated so far for Canada by years. How much has been pledged, donated so far for headquarters by years?
Well, I will tell you, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we have physically received from only 30 people. And I'm saying only 30 because we know that there are many others who have called us and talked to us or sending in. So 30 people to this point have committed and pledged between $155,000 and $160,000. So we have about $12,000 to $15,000 cash immediately, and between $38,000 and $40,000 for pledged over the period of time here. So, like I say, so that is only 30 people have pledged between 150 and 160,000. So we are expecting, and we know that there are multiple other people that are calling and want to let us know that they're sending stuff in. So in that aspect, that is very encouraging that the word is getting out there, and we're starting now to get some response from Western Canada, from Eastern Canada, and obviously from the local. I might also say that there's a broad range of people, from younger people who have pledged as much as $5 to $10 a month to some of our senior people who have pledged hundreds and sometimes thousands per month. So we are not only touching the core of the church, we're also beginning to reach out and to touch some of the families of people who are there. Also, there are people who, as Kerry has been talking about over time, people who are on the fringes of the church, who have at one time in their life been associated with the church, and for whatever reason, other priorities in their life have drawn them away, and yet in their hearts they're still carrying the spirit and the legacy of the church. And they are responding as well, which is a very positive thing, to realize that even in their absence, in their hearts, the church is still there.
Thank you, John. The second part of this question from the same person who sent it in, they say, after March 22nd, will we be given an update as to where the church stands in regards to the next 4 years financially?
Yes, so Danica, we will, so maybe I can say a little bit about that, and even, I do have a number from this morning for World Church, so I understand that, and I think, kind of, based on talking with Dar, this number wouldn't include the Canadian number, so, but as what I understood this morning was that as of today, they had received pledges for this year of $270,000 US. So that makes Canada look pretty impressive, I have to say. But I would just kind of say, I mean, it's an unprecedented kind of thing. So we find ourselves really with kind of two things going on. I mean, on the one hand, circumstances have kind of caught up with us to the point that we really do need to begin living within within our means. So living within the income that we receive from tithing and bequests and maybe some other miscellaneous income. But and so there is a strategic team of the World Church Leadership Council that has been working in a room for the last couple of weeks on coming up with a plan to significantly shrink our budget. At the same time, some people out there in the church have said, wait, is there something that we can do? And actually, several of those key voices were from right here in Canada. And people who posted that question on Facebook and then, you know, emailed the acting presiding bishop and demanded an answer from Stacey Cram. And Stacey Cram, who's busy sitting in a room with people trying to figure out how to reduce our budget, kind of took the time to say, well, I don't know how realistic this is, but if you want to try, here's kind of what it might look like. And so this grassroots effort has begun. And we don't have much time, and I don't know what it's going to look like. But certainly after March 22nd, we will get an update on how much has been pledged over and above the level of tithing that people gave last year, because that's the thing, the budget that is being worked on is based on the level of tithing that we received last year. So the challenge before us is to maintain what we were doing and to see if we have any additional capacity. So we will get an answer, Danica. And in fact, next week, so on the 14th, the Council of 12 will start meeting, and I expect it will be an interesting week of meetings because on the one hand, we'll be working on the new $16.5 million budget. On the other hand, you know, we may have we've already got some good news about some additional funds that may be available, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Thank you, Rick. We have another one here that was submitted ahead of time. It says, will any new monies being pledged to World Church somehow affect and increase our assessments for campgrounds and or CEM?
The simple answer is no. The campground assessments and the congregational assessments are derived from the local giving of the congregation, so it comes off your T3010s. Any money that is given to World Church flows through to the head office. The head office looks after that. So in terms of your congregational assessment and subsequent campground assessment, it will not raise by order. It will only raise from generosity of your heart.
Thank you, Rick. We have one here via email. It says, why the urgency? What happens after the 22nd?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. So why the urgency? What happens after the 22nd? The 22nd isn't actually kind of a magic date. At the same time, what has happened has already happened. So the urgency is because we're already in the situation, and now the challenge is to get ourselves out of it. So the thing that has happened, and I know that not everyone may have had a chance to read the question and answer documents that are out there on the World Church webpage, and to have watched acting presiding bishop Stacey Cram's video. But one of the key pieces in all of this is that our endowment investments that are heavily tilted towards real estate have been newly assessed to be worth less than what we had been assuming based on previous assessments that they were worth. And the way endowments work is that we have pledged to the people who have invested in those endowments over the years that we will maintain the principal of those investments and just spend an earning rate from those invested endowments. What has happened to us is that as we have been trying to maximize the level of staff deployment in the field and living optimistically about the performance of those investments and about our ability to increase tithing, we have gotten to a point where, with the latest assessed value of those investments, we can no longer justify spending any interest out of those endowments. And so the urgency comes from that situation, which is kind of already before us. So the church is, and church leaders feel like it's their responsibility to try to preserve what is left of those endowments, and they will bless us in the future. But for now, we really need to, as soon as possible, stop spending the principal of that money. And so that's why the urgency. The other piece of that, I guess, is a desire to try to treat our existing employees as fairly as we can. And so we want to not, one, drag this on for a long time of uncertainty, and at the same time we want to be able to give those employees some severance pay so that they, so that means as we budget, the longer that we keep people employed and the further we push out that severance, the more of our already depleted endowments we're spending. So the urgency is because, not because of something magical that will happen on the 22nd, but because of things that have already happened.
All right, so I'm just really quickly going to put out my reminder again. So if you're joining us online, just a reminder that you can send questions into communityplaceplus, all one word, @gmail.com. That's communityplaceplus@gmail.com. Or you can phone us at 416-845-5003. That's 416-845-5003. Okay, so we have another question here, and I'm going to read it out as it's written. My question is, why is that seemingly all of a sudden World Accord needs $100,000 for 1 year to start, possibly more for 5 years? Now World Church needs $6 million. What's going on?
Very good. So maybe just a little history lesson. So to go back a few years, things are not actually quite as sudden as they might appear, and I admit I kind of live in the church bubble. So I am one of those people that kind of hangs on every announcement and everything that happens, and I'm sitting in a lot of those meetings. So, but it's a little bit hard to know where to start with the story, but I think it might be helpful to go back more than just this year and this last year, but maybe like 5 years ago or 7 years ago, when we were kind of in a time of kind of diminishing, gradually, but diminishing tithing. Actually, actually tithing was fairly stable, but costs were going up. So for the church to just maintain the current level with the same number of employees and all of that, we actually have to increase tithing. And tithing was not increasing. And we had been through a couple of adjustments to our budget, and we sat in meetings where the presiding bishopric were saying, we really need to cut again. And Jim Slaughter, who was at the time the president of the Council of 12 and director of field ministries, stood up and made a passionate, wonderful speech, my kind of speech, the glasses overflowing kind of speech, but challenging us that we cannot just keep cutting, and we need to ask the church to step up and to be generous, and that there was a committee that had been working on ideas to how to increase giving to the church, and in a flight of hope and optimism, the commitment was made to try to increase tithing and to kind of stay the course with our staffing levels. And we went to work on that. And we actually, tithing went from about $12 million all the way up to a year, up to about $14.8 million that first year. We were sending out some mailers, and we were talking about this power of 10 thing and challenging people to give 10 extra dollars, and it seemed to be working, and people were very optimistic. But the next year, we lost that tithing that we had gained, and we lost another $1 million on top of it. The thing is, we had kind of committed to giving this a chance, to really try this. And we had that hopeful year where things had gone so well, and we still felt like perhaps we could turn this around. You know, in hindsight, we ended up kind of settling out at about 12 million. I mean, that seems to be where tithing was just going to stay for those years. But at the end of all of that stubborn trying to make this work, we had just kept spending and spending and spending down our cash. And our investments became heavily slanted towards real estate. And in there somewhere we had this real estate crash in the United States that led to what had seemed to be, 3,250 acres that might as well have been a gold mine, in the euphoria of pre-housing crash USA, had now become something that was going to take a little longer to produce the kinds of benefits to the church that we'd hoped it would. So, it's not all of a sudden exactly. It's something that's been developing. And last year, the church finally said, we need to make that adjustment that we should have made probably sooner. And so there was a major reduction last year. In that reduction last year, World Accord was informed that they were not going to benefit from some of the funding that the church had been providing for World Accord. So that's why, kind of all of a sudden, last year, World Accord found themselves short on their budget. And then this year, after the church already tightening its belt, we find out that our endowment income is not worth what we thought it would. And so now we're hit with the double whammy. It's kind of a perfect storm that has materialized to affect World Accord and the church at this particular time. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that all of this is going on. I'm sorry, I guess, that, you know, there were probably tough decisions that we resisted making out of hope, and trying to keep more people in the field. I'm also sorry that, you know, someone said to me, I just need a simple explanation for what's going on here. And I'm sorry that the problem is there really isn't a simple explanation. It is the convergence of several factors, several of which on their own are complicated. But here we are.
Thank you, Rick. The next question is from GoToMeeting. Someone's written in, they say, I have heard from some sources that the church should consider selling off historical sites. While I'm not in favor of that, are there any plans to utilize the auditorium offices more effectively and thereby increasing revenues?
I don't know. So that's a good question. Right now, we use some offices in the auditorium, but part of the auditorium kind of sits a little bit vacant. Depending on how things go in the next couple of weeks, there may be some more vacancies. So I don't know, but that is an idea that I can bring back and contribute into the mix. I suspect that there are people kind of turning over every rock and looking behind every nook and cranny, but I will make sure that we're looking into that one.
Thank you. This was actually a second parter to the one above, and if you feel like you've answered it, just say so and we'll move forward. They say, why are we just now hearing this? Didn't they know before this that they were in money trouble?
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, communication is always such an interesting challenge, you know, and it involves kind of speaking and listening, and there are all sorts of different ways to get information out, and I know the church tries to get information out. It's a struggle, I think, sometimes because, you know, we don't want to be constantly pestering people for money. But at the same time, I think that's led to us sometimes being too shy about just sharing with people the real realities of how the church works, and that there are lots of opportunities out there for us, but some of those cost money, and so I don't know. You know, I don't know for any particular person what they've heard and what they haven't heard. I hope we can do better at sharing information and also, you know, not just kind of world church to the church out there, but each of us kind of sharing with each other and encouraging each other. It seems to me sometimes that we have gotten a little bit I don't want to say mean words about us. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. We haven't done a good job at kind of educating our young adults and encouraging our young adults to share generously with the church. And so what we have is a situation where most of the folks that are giving to the church, well, young adults are not participating very much in generously sharing financially with the church. And when I say young adults, I do mean people under the age of 70. I know that may not be the usual definition of young adult, but that's the one that is most helpful for right now, because I've seen under the hood of our giving statistics, and it was startling to realize, I've had a number of people even write me the last little while to say, I'm not sure you understand, where a lot of the members of the church are on a fixed income, and a lot of them are older, and so our capacity is limited. And that just provokes strange emotions in me, because on the one hand, I'm very sympathetic. On the other hand, I am in awe, because I know that that is true, and I know that nevertheless, that is the generation that is primarily carrying the church. And so in a way, back 10 years ago, part of what led to this optimism that surely we could do something was the realization that our young adults, well, now I'm going to get myself into trouble, but our young adults were so bad at sharing generously with the church that surely we could do something about this, because we could do better. So, I don't know. I still think that may be true, but we'll just have to see.
Actually, this topic bleeds in really nicely to our next question, and it reads like this. In light of current financial constraints impacting World Church and other jurisdictions, I worry that current demographic reductions in both Canada and the US will continue to impact giving, with a significant number of baby boomers retiring en masse in the very near future. How will the Community of Christ, Canada, and the USA handle this very significant drop in revenue during following decades, and still provide a reasonable amount of services and ministry to all affected congregations? This trend has already been noticeable in our own congregations and will mean major changes to the way we provide ministry in the community.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So, and keeping in mind that, this is me. So what's my answer? I told you, my answer is that I believe in the God that is, about to do amazing things. So anything is possible. I'm aware of the demographic trends. It may be that when those baby boomers retire and turn 70, they will magically convert into those wonderfully generous over 70-year-olds who I know and love. I don't know. I have a feeling that will not just happen on its own magically. And I think it will have to do with communication and sharing and motivating. I see so many amazingly exciting things happening in the church, including, congregations like the Salt Lake City congregation that was down to six people or so, and now, it wouldn't be at all unusual to have 75. Actually, it wouldn't be all that unusual to have 100 people crowded into their sanctuary on a Sunday morning. So I know that things are possible. Things are possible that we cannot even begin to imagine. But yes, it's a bit scary. So we need to kind of, and I don't want to just kind of like guilt us into this, but I hope we're going to get excited about stuff that's going on, and that there will be resources. You want to talk a little bit about the endowment?
Just as a follow-up to that question, that certainly question come up is how do we ensure that this does not happen again, particularly with the demographics we have. And so this is probably one of the poorest kept secrets in Eastern Canada, if not all of Canada. But at this World Conference, they are going to announce that there is a plans for a Canadian endowment. The plan for this Canadian endowment was to raise a minimum of $20 million. That would be set aside to sustain and maintain the Church in Canada forever. That the earnings from this would be designated specifically for the operation of the church, and it would ensure that we would always have the resources here. While the demographics are such that we are getting older, we do know that a great number of those people have resources and love the church and are willing to extend themselves to help us build this endowment, so their children and grandchildren will always have the church to be there. So that is something we are working on and planning on. It has started. It's kind of in the silent stage. The campaign committee and the group themselves have currently have over $1 million in the bank and have pledged $4 million. And this is just from the campaign members themselves and a few discussions on the outside. So it will be part of the overall church program here in Canada to raise this money. And unfortunately, this situation is here, and we also need to support it. But in terms of the future, we are looking to build this endowment. One of the things from the endowment is that it will free up all of the tithing that is raised in Canada, and the Canadians are some of the most generous people in the church. We currently raise over $1 million in tithing. We must remember that there are only 4,000 or 5,000 members in the Canadian church, and the active numbers are even less, and yet the commitment is there, and we do see an opportunity for the church to expand and to grow and to be self-sustaining while this generation is still here, so that these young people, young adults like myself and my son Mark, will have the opportunity to continue to live the dream.
Can I share something?
Oh yeah, Kerry, go ahead.
So Art was talking a few moments ago about communication. And a lot of us feel, I sense, disconnected from World Church. That it's an entity out there that's somewhat beyond us, that there's a bubble that is sort of our congregations. Even the relationship with the Mission Center is somewhat distant for some people, and we are not really sensing that unity and that oneness with the Mission Center and with World Church. And I feel that each of us has to take some initiative in becoming familiar with World Church. And so the website, for example, is something that I think we each need to spend time with and see the amazing resources that we have and the super videos which help to familiarize us with what is happening, all the good news. And there are sermons and things like that by general officers of the church that will inspire us. And at this point, we just don't have that connection in many of our people's lives. I asked Herald House to give me records of how many people were receiving the Herald in our congregations. And some of them have almost everyone receiving it who is involved in the congregation. And we have some significant congregations where not a single person receives the Herald. And there's something called the 10-minute newsletter and other various newsletters that we can subscribe to in the Daily Bread and so forth that people are not taking advantage of. And so I just wanted to share that for us to become more familiar with who we are as a church, and that, you know, independence is the heart of who we are, we really need to take some responsibility to become connected, and that will help us to be generous, because those are people who are bringing to us ministries and resources and inspiration that enables us to minister.
Thank you. We're having lots of activity on GoToMeeting, but I just really wanted to quickly again just shout out to our email and our phone option as well for sending in questions. So the email again is communityplaceplus, all one word, @gmail.com, and the phone number is 416-845-5003. That's 416-845-5003. So our next question here is again from GoToMeeting. And it says, has there been any thought given to reducing salaries or benefits, etc., for staff and yet still have employment?
So thank you for that question. And it's probably a little awkward for me to wade into answering the question because I'm one of those church employees, so I'm talking about my wages, I guess. But certainly, and I think it has to do partly with the dedication of every person who works for the church, which, by the way, as I walk around the auditorium or the temple and even visiting with folks, my day starts out really right if I get there just at the time when Brother Tom, and I do say Brother Tom because he always calls me brother, so when Brother Tom is emptying the trash in the temple break room, and we have a little visit about him and his ministry, every person who works for the church, as pretty much that I know of anyway, it's really not just a job. It is a ministry and a calling, and it's more than just a job. And so it's always a bit of a challenge trying to balance the fact that we have to live, and we have kids who want to go to university, and we have to put food on our tables and that kind of thing. And so it becomes kind of an interesting tension. Every time we have gone into a period of talking about reducing the budget, staff come up with the suggestion that, can we talk about reducing wages to protect jobs? And typically what has happened over the years is not so much that we have cut wages, but we have not increased wages. And that has led to a situation where here within the last couple of years, the Human Resources Department, working with an outside consultant, did a study of our salaries, and we were warned that comparing us to other churches and nonprofit organizations, that our salaries are too low. And that becomes problematic in terms of attracting people to come work for the church, keeping people working for the church. It becomes problematic just because people don't have enough money to live in the places where they're trying to live. So just as we were heading into this last round of downsizing, we had the results of this compensation study. And that compensation study, unfortunately, in some ways, is kind of wasted money, because that compensation study is sitting on a shelf because there was not enough money to make salary adjustments that, according to the outside consultant, those salaries needed to go up. But I know that it will be on the table again as we talk about this, because the very employees who work for the church will be saying, can we look at reducing salaries? What we have done over this last year is make some adjustments to our benefits plans. And so the pension system that the church has had for quite a few years has been changed. In the US, there's already a new retirement plan, and that means, so for those of us living in the US, I know we all had a conference where we went and sat down with someone who talked to us about our new pension plan, which allows us to contribute to our pension. Before we had just a defined benefit plan, now we have this new plan, and all of the employees, especially those of us in that kind of awkward age, not in their 20s and not in their 60s, but somewhere in, you know, that lovely middle period, were kind of advised that we needed to be careful, because if we wanted to have the same level of pension that we were going to have, we need to contribute X hundreds of dollars additional each month to be able to have that level of pension. So in some ways, it becomes a little bit more complicated, because many of our staff this year, not only have they been advised that they really should be earning more, they've been advised that they need to contribute $200 or $300 additional dollars a month to their retirement plan just to keep it at the level that it was going to be at. Now, that move saves the church significant amounts of money, but to some extent, employees of the church are having to help make up that difference. So, that may sound like I'm defending or justifying my salary, and you asked me the question, so yes, Kerry.
So as Art has indicated, the reduction in our payroll has not happened, but each of us who are employees of the church are also responding as we're asking you to donate to World Church and sacrificially, and that is something that we are doing. And so don't think that we are not following the advice that we're also, sharing with you tonight.
And I will tell you from a testimonial part, I had been hired just immediately prior to the last cutbacks. And so when this option came up, the request about employees reducing wages and giving back, I was one of the ones that was enthusiastic about doing that. And I appreciate the advice and the wisdom of the HR people, because they said, we need you to make those decisions, not us. We would rather you look at your own generosity and capacity, and just like Kerry said. And so I can tell you that my generosity was more than they would have taken, or I would have been willing to allow them to remove from my salary. And I think that was something that every employee did at some point in time, is to look at their own situation. And so we're in a situation now where we are asking. And I can assure you, because I know Kerry and I at least have talked, that we would not be asking you for support if we ourselves were not prepared to walk the walk, and we're certainly doing that.
Thank you, Darren. So I apologize for the order here, but a question came in most recently that I think kind of fits with this, so I'm going to go to that one now. And just on another note, if anybody here would like to share, we do have the microphone, and even though you're a little behind my peripheral, I'll make sure to turn around and make sure that I'm checking to see if anybody would like to speak from here. So the question that I'd like to ask you here, latest one that came in, says, can volunteers, ministers, and local volunteer professionals provide services, mission, and support in lieu of having paid staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reality is that Community of Christ has always been a primarily volunteer-based organization. So at the moment, and in my world next week, I'm going to be spending a lot of time focusing on our employees. And employees have been a great blessing to the church, and they do certain things that it's really wonderful sometimes to have people who are just available to dedicate the kind of time and professionalism to be able to develop themselves in a particular area of expertise of ministry within the church. That is all wonderful, but volunteers continue to be the backbone of ministry in Community of Christ. And in fact, lots of other churches, I was reading an email earlier today where one of our WISE members was referring to other denominations that have not survived or fared as well as we have in terms of being a small denomination, but we're still going. And that is because we are this amazing volunteer organization. So yes, there will be room for volunteers. There are always room for volunteers. In the United States, where I've been serving most for the last 3 years, and with this last round of reductions, many of our mission center presidents, full-time mission center presidents, have been replaced by volunteers, either individuals or teams of people who are serving as volunteer mission center presidents or mission center president teams. One of the things that most concerns me about the downsizing that we're facing is that as we moved into that structure and recruited all of these volunteers, it was with the understanding that there was kind of a network of support of staff who kind of had their backs, you know, and were going to be there to support them as they ministered as volunteers. And that network, with the kind of reduction that we're having to do right now, is in serious jeopardy. So volunteers are going to be challenged, but you know, I think the challenge for us has been forever to be the most amazing volunteer organization. And there are things that we can do better, but we are an amazing volunteer organization. So.
I just wanted to clarify really quickly. We got, after the fact, clarification that they're referring to World Church staff in particular. So if you wanted to add to that, I suppose.
Yeah. And I don't know what's meant by World Church staff. So in terms of kind of World Church appointees, the old term, you know, that we used, World Church appointees who were doing things like serving as mission center financial officers and mission center presidents. Certainly, there are positions like those that are already being, you know, where we've got volunteers who have stepped up to serve in those kinds of capacities. It's challenging, you know, to have a volunteer come along and do what a full-time, professionally trained person has been doing. But we have volunteers who have amazing skills and competencies. So we'll continue to dance that dance. And if anyone feels a sense of call, I would love to hear from you. And we would love to hear from you, because I've been hanging out the last couple of days in what I refer to, Kerry Richards, who's the Mission Center President for Canada East, in his office, in his home. I call it Mission Control, you know, and there are all sorts of posters. It's all these flip chart pages stuck up on the walls things to remind about our values and our principles and the mission that is before us, but some of those flip charts are filled with lists of jobs and things that we could do. And we need to find people to help us with this and with that. And so anyone who is feeling a sense of call to volunteer in new ways, I'm sure we would love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. So right now we have 2 more questions on the list. So if anybody's holding back questions that they'd like to ask, Rod would like to ask one. So why don't we hop over to Rod, and then I'll go back to the go-to meeting questions.
Just before we go to Rod.
Oh, sure, yeah.
If I could, first of all, I have to get a word in edgewise here because
Yes.
I'm sitting here. Second, to the point about volunteers, and I just want to support Art's observation that we are a church of volunteers, and we have been proudly so for whatever it is, 160 years. I certainly know that there are many jobs now that are being done in a volunteer capacity that at one time were World Church staff and were paid. And I don't think I have to ask too many in the audience, at least that I see here, that it would be too hard for you to remember appointee district presidents. When I was growing up, I never ever heard of a self-sustaining 70, and particularly I never heard of a self-sustaining bishop. And all of those things have come and gone. We had, I was serving at a volunteer district president in Alberta for a number of years just before the Mission Center came in. And we just came to expect that, and it was part of what we did. And now, and Art referred to individuals and committees stepping forward in roles of Mission Center presidents and financial officers in the United States, and I'm saying to myself, having been in this role now for a little over a year and a half, are they crazy? And there's just, you know, there is sort of a question in my mind about how far can you go to expect people to accept responsibility and significant responsibility for the ongoing operations of an organization, whether that's the church at large or whether it's a mission center or whether it's even some of our programs and functions that have traditionally been overseen by people who have been paid staff and are now overseen by volunteers. We've accepted that. There are risks that go with that. We've accepted those risks and mitigated those risks to the extent that we can. I'm just questioning how far we can really go with volunteers versus people who are paid and dedicated to doing what they're doing with training and background behind them to make it work.
Thank you. So Rod, we'll welcome you.
Are the funds that are received in Canada going to be transferred to the United States, or used in Canada, or used in some other country? If they go to the U.S. presently, we'll lose 40%.
So Rod, thanks for that question. And yeah, we are really, the Bishop of Canada for years has, when that was Jim Poirier before and now Dar Shepherdson, they work very, very closely with the presiding bishopric to protect the value of our Canadian contributions and to make sure that they're used according to the intent of the donors. And part of that right now certainly is avoiding unnecessary conversion of Canadian dollars into US dollars. And even watching for opportunities to convert US dollars into Canadian dollars, bring some up here if we can. So that would certainly be, you know, our desire as much as possible. So the money that is given to World Church in Canada would go first to covering expenses of World Church in Canada. So Canadian World Church staff, Canadian retirees, and even kind of cleverly doing things to try to, you know, in the past, as World Accord has benefited from monies from World Church, rather than moving money across the border, using money that was World Church money that was already here in Canada. So the Bishop of Canada office is pretty savvy when it comes to protecting those funds. You really should say something, Dar.
Well, there's no question, I have been in negotiation with some of with the presiding bishop designate and her councillors. In the past, our Canadian tithing was part of the World Church budget, and we never really saw the effect that it was having on the missions of the church. If somebody said to me, "Where's your money being spent?" I would say, "Go get your last Herald and look on the second page, and it'll tell you where all the money's going." There's no question that there will be some monies that will be supporting World Church programs as it was in the past. However, what it will allow us to do as Canadians is to have visibility. So some of it, yes, will continue to support some of the world mission initiatives. However, what it does do for us is opens the door and the opportunity for us to express ourselves in the world as part of the World Church with the monies we have. And so we are also investigating is that what can the Canadians do in a missionary sense outside our borders as well as within our borders. And so I think the benefit of it is in the future we're going to be able to tell you this is where your money is being sent, and you can see it in real time and in real life what it is doing for the missions of the church, both locally and abroad.
Okay, thank you. We have Bryce in person. I'm going to do one question from GoToMeeting, and then I'll go to you, Bryce. So the next question here is, who is most responsible for setting the church budget? Is it World Church Financial Board or the presiding bishopric and the First Presidency?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there are a number of people that work on developing the World Church budget. The presiding bishopric is extremely involved in identifying the assets that are available to fund the mission of the church. And then they collaborate with the Director of Field Ministries and with the First Presidency in general, and with the Council of 12 to develop the budgets for the field and for international headquarters and for World Church leadership. So there are a number of us that are involved in that. Once a budget is developed, then that budget goes to the World Church Finance Board. So the World Church Finance Board is a body that includes some ex officio members. So the Council of 12, so the apostles are members of the World Church Finance Board. But there are several elected members of the World Church Finance Board, elected by the World Conference. And it is the World Conference that delegates their authority to approve a budget to that World Church Finance Board. So the World Church Finance Board may be briefed and may be involved throughout the year in monitoring the church's financial situation. But their next meeting, and they just had one of those kinds of update meetings on the 29th of February, coming up in June, just after the World Conference, they'll be meeting to approve the budget for the next year. So they are the ones who are ultimately responsible for approving the budget that is developed initially by World Church leaders.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, so we'll go to Bryce now with his question. Bryce Taylor.
Thank you, Danica. I'd like to go back to the beginning of the meeting. We've spent a lot of time, trying to work out logistics and that sort of thing with the financing and everything else. But Art, you were mentioning in the beginning, and Kerry just mentioned it kind of through the meeting today, that there's programs that are coming that show great promise in attracting more participants, in attracting more people. Because I think we have to admit that at the bottom of this, there's the problem. We don't have enough people coming in. They may be excited about the community of Christ, but so I've heard of several of them myself. And so I'd just like you to maybe go into that in a little bit more detail. What is hitting you in North America as really promising nice things that are maybe solving that basic foundational problem? Okay.
Yeah, so there are lots of things going on. One of the key priorities that has come to our attention is related to the interest of Latter-day Seekers in Community of Christ. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I might just say a little bit more about that. It's curious, you know, it's talking about perfect storm. So it seems like it's this just interesting convergence of circumstances where folks in some of the other Latter-day Saint traditions, in particular the Latter-day Saint Church in Utah, headquartered in Utah, the Mormon Church, has been losing some members, frustrated because of kind of beliefs and policies of the Latter-day Saint Church. It's kind of funny when all of a sudden significant numbers of people start looking around, wondering that there was a church in the Restoration tradition that, you know, ordained women. Or a church, wouldn't it be cool if there was a church in the Restoration tradition that wasn't quite so top-down hierarchical, but where people could voice their opinions and disagree with each other faithfully. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a Restoration church, they say, that, you know, was open about accepting and affirming people in the gay and lesbian, transgender community. And some of those people have discovered that, like, wow, there is a church like that. Who knew? And so it's been really interesting, I mean, to follow the stories of some of those people who have been investigating Community of Christ. You know, nothing quite like reading the testimony of someone experiencing, from a Mormon background in Utah, experiencing a Community of Christ congregation business meeting for the first time. And coming home to post on Facebook, it was amazing. Like, people talked, people argued, but they left respecting each other. Some people voted no. Amazing. And so that is something that is touching us in Canada too. So I mention it partly because in the Western U.S. it's become just such a huge thing, but also, you know, right here in the greater Toronto area, across Canada, certainly out in Western Canada, there's potential, we think, in Calgary and Lethbridge down that way for this to be something very exciting. And it's an opportunity for us to kind of prepare our witness and so there's a Latter-day Seeker webpage, and there are study materials and resources that we can prepare that we can read to and study together to be prepared to answer the questions that people are coming with, and to understand the difference in culture between the church that people may be coming from and yet they've not been perfectly happy with, and what they're looking for. And so that's one of the exciting things that's going on. I think some of what's going on is that we're rediscovering, some of the opportunities, Bryce, are things that we're kind of rediscovering. Things that have been part of the church for ages, but that we just have kind of either we came to sort of take for granted or weren't paying attention to. So, there are things like, wow, do you know that in the city of Toronto, we have these housing projects that are, sponsored and supported by Community of Christ, and we've got members who are involved. So John Hamer, who's, for those of, I know not everybody's here in the room, but John Hamer is sitting here in the room, who is pastor of our Toronto congregation, is John, you're the chairman of the, I want to get the right terminology, but the chairman of the board for Cyanito, for this housing project that we've got going on here. That's something that there is renewed excitement about. The programs that World Accord is offering, we've got this, folks that are, I've been following on Facebook just this week, and I'm talking to our brother, oh my goodness, where'd your name go? No. Armando. Talking to Armando here tonight, who is just back from a build in Honduras. And there are folks down there with World Accord right now who've been working on building a school. Brian Caruana and the Encounter World Religions program, which is just a gem of a program that is impacting thousands of people with this wonderful message of respect for diversity and honoring other cultures and religions. So, to me, where things are starting to sparkle are where we're finding the wherewithal to focus on the stuff that just really excites us, and where we find the ability to focus on the things that we really want to invite people to. And we've got those things that are part of our church and our community. But we need to look for opportunities to be more outward focused. So when we've got 190 people signed up for the Coffee and Conversation ministry in Hamilton, that excites me, because most of those people are folks that we've never met before. And we just need to be meeting more people, and then we need to be sharing with them about the awesome stuff that we've got going on. Because when it comes right down to it, it is true that we can have wonderful endowments, but if we don't do something about getting involved with new people and inviting new people to be part of all the various aspects of what this wonderful Community of Christ thing is, our endowments will not have anything to do.
I think that there's a parallel between the temporal and the spiritual and money and the growth of the church. We as a church have always been afraid to talk about money. So consequently, we hope for the best. When we have a crisis like this and we have to talk about it. And I think we have these opportunities out there that are happening and that people are responding to. But it really comes from the individuals in there. My wife is shy. I said to her, we should start a small group on our street. And she says, go ahead. She says, I won't. This is not me. This is not what I do. We walk down the street, walking the dog. She talks to everybody on the street. We just found out that David Donahue's sister lives 4 blocks or 4 houses down from us. She says, the next time we see them out in the yard, we'll go introduce ourselves. And I'm shaking my head. I say, let's start a small group in our street. Not me. It's not me. We, as a spiritual practice, talk about the mission of prayer. Grant me the courage to risk something new. And I think not only from a monetary, temporal point of view, do we sacrifice. We need to look at each other, look in our own hearts, and say, there are people out there who want to hear what we say. They're looking at us, The big projects will continue to draw. We need to be working on those in a corporate sense. But every single individual has that same potential to do that kind of work.
Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly say here that we're going to cut off submission for questions at 9 o'clock, so that leaves about 12 minutes left. We have 4 here waiting. We've got Tiona on the phone recording one from somebody who's called in with a question. So I'll move forward here with the next go-to meeting. Question that we have here says, are we going to go back to the old concept of tithing and what is expected of a member on an annual basis? Generosity is wonderful, but having a goal in mind each year might help.
So we've kind of we've been struggling over the years to figure out, what to do with this concept of tithing, and it is an interesting challenge. So I grew up. So let me just confess my misunderstanding of our understanding of tithing as I was growing up. So I grew up in the RLDS church, and for me, what I kind of learned at my father's knee was, thank goodness we're not like the evil Mormons who require 10% of your income in tithing. So we only have to give 10% of our increase to tithing. And, I think that established my initial bias about generosity. So I was proud to belong to a church that didn't ask very much of me. And I sometimes feel like I was not alone in that misunderstanding. I have had to come to a place of realizing that, while the Old Testament talked about tithing and the tithing law, the New Testament kind of was a little more outrageous, and it kind of asked us to give all that we are. So it's hard to put a percentage on that. And so we kind of dance in this tension between, yes, a sense that the Hebrew people for years had an understanding of 10% of their, 10% that would go to God, and then Jesus comes along and says, you want to know what it really is? I mean, you need to sacrifice all that you have and give it joyfully because God has given you everything that you have. So I've had a lot of people ask me about, what's our policy on tithing now? So we have kind of a tithing policy that asks us causes and world church causes. And for folks that feel like they need to have kind of a guideline about, but how much, then the church says, well, maybe you might think about 10%, because that's kind of been an old tradition in our Judeo-Christian sense of increase was tithing. We were only referring to the portion that went to world church. So it wasn't that we were only being asked to give 10% of our increase. It was 10% of our increase was the piece that went to world church. I remember hearing Bishop Frank Silverthorne at one point, who was at a men's retreat in the Ottawa district, saying that, he wasn't here to talk about tithing. He was sure we had that all under control. He was here for the rest of our money. And so the thing is, I am not here for the rest of your money, but there are amazing things going on. It would be wonderful if we could assign full-time ministers to several key places in the U.S. and Canada where we have literally hundreds of Latter-day Saint or former Latter-day Saint folks interested in getting involved in the community of Christ, but they really need someone to walk with them and help them understand what we're all about. It would be wonderful if we could deploy a dozen full-time ministers to doing that, instead of being in a situation of having to dramatically reduce staff. There are all sorts of things that we could do if we find the capacity. But
Okay, so this one's a bit of a long one. It reads, is it not the case that our fundamental problem is that we simply do not have enough paying customers willing to buy what we're selling? And if so, are we not simply rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? I'm concerned about the future of the church beyond this short-term solution we are offering now. Is our fundamental problem that we really simply don't have enough people that are willing to donate sufficient money that will allow the church to continue operating? Do we have a plan that will take us beyond the short-term problem that we have to get us to a healthy financial situation?
so, yes, we have a plan, and it is you. So the plan is for you all, and that includes me when I say you, the plan is for us to ramp up our testimony, to start noticing that we are amazing, and that there are people out there that need to know that there is this amazing church. And you know, a bunch of those people don't even know that a church could possibly be amazing. And so we need to find creative ways to even open the conversation with people that don't scare them off with the very first words out of our mouths. But we need to engage in inviting, and then inviting, and then inviting people to discover this amazing thing. And, you know, we've got in Canada the blessing of having many people, so, and even full-time people, who are helping us to notice some of the amazing potential that are around us. So the revitalization ministers that we've got hired, so Troy and Bryce and Wendy and Russ, who's sitting right here in front of me, and people like Lisa and Deborah and Kerry and Steve, you know, amazing people who are passionate about mission. So we need to, you know, pay attention to this amazing potential that is there. Because, I mean, the good news is, like, you know, we don't have a plan. The bad news is we don't have a plan other than that. The good news is the plan is you, and we can do this. Because we're following the God who led people out of slavery by parting the waters and opening up dry land, and the God who said, try that, let's see, now we can open up water in the desert, and we'll do that. Because anything is possible, everything is possible. A whole bunch of it, though, does depend on our attitudes. So I shared with the Canada East folks at Mission Center Conference, those who were there, about this fascinating cognitive dissonance that I've been living in for the last 3 years, remembering one of my favorite little congregations in South America, Argentina, that, you know, when there were 3 people that wanted to be baptized in that congregation because they heard about it on the internet, about Community of Christ on the internet, and they wrote to us and they said, we'd like to be baptized, and we're like, Argentina? We don't have a church in Argentina. And you're like 10 hours by bus from the airport in Buenos Aires. And there are 3 of you, and I just don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. And they kept writing back. Now we've got 5. Now we've got 7 who want to be baptized. We've got 10. We've got a dozen. When they had 15 people, we went to Argentina and baptized 15 people in Montecaseros, Argentina. And And you know, over the last 3 years, traveling around to congregations in the United States and Canada, I have been in many congregations that struggle to have 15 people on a Sunday. And many of those congregations I go and I sit in and I listen to them tell me about how big they used to be and programs they used to run and how we used to this. And I just found myself thinking, you know, what is the difference between the 15 people sitting here in this Canadian congregation and the 15 people in Argentina? The 15 people in Argentina are determined that they are going to convert all of Argentina to the community of Christ because it is the best thing, because our enduring principles are what everybody needs to hear and understand. And yet, you know, in many of our congregations, it's like, well, we don't sing very well. And let me tell you, those folks in Montecaseros, Argentina are the worst singers on the planet. And in case you're thinking, well, yeah, but in all those foreign countries, you know, it's real easy to just, you know, because everybody's looking for a treat. Ask Leandro in the Toronto congregation to talk to, who's from Argentina. Ask him to tell you about Argentina. Argentina is a country that is Roman Catholic and or secular, and they are not coming out of the woodwork, generally speaking, looking for quirky little churches like Community of Christ. But those guys are so passionate about this message that we have and this cool church that they have discovered that you cannot stop them from baptizing new people into this congregation. And so their tiny little lean-to church that was built for, well, supposedly built for 20, but I think it was really only had room for the first 15 of them. You know, you'd go and visit them and they've got 35 people squeezed like sardines into this little church. And now they've built another church that's built for like 25 of them and has 60 of them squeezed into it. So, what's the difference between that little group of 15 in Montecaseros and a little group of 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 of us sitting here in Canada? We have a plan. It's us.
Thank you, Rick. All right, so it's 9 o'clock now, so we've got 3 more questions left, and that will be the conclusion of the question and answer period. Although
I can try to be quick and answer.
Although we did want to open up the opportunity for anybody who thinks of something that they want to ask and just didn't quite get it in under the wire, that they can email CEM again. Is it okay to get them to email Emily again? Emily? Okay, so that's emily@communityofchrist.ca. And then if they had specific questions for any of you, they can email you directly. Is that all right?
You can always email me directly.
Always.
Yeah, I love getting email from people, and almost as much as I love meeting you on Facebook. So, yeah.
Perfect. So we apologize if we weren't able to get to everybody who had questions today. But as I said, feel free to email them directly to emily@communityofchrist.ca or any of our lovely panelists today personally. Also, just a note: the Ustream video that's being recorded today will be available online for a month. So if you were unable to connect at the very beginning and you would like to review what has been said, that link will still be available, and you can click the video and it just plays beginning to end for you, so that you can make sure that you're caught up. So without further ado, I'll move on to the next question that we have here. It says, what's being done to prevent this from happening again, specifically running the finances into the principal? And what will be done to ensure not all our financial expectations are not in one basket?
Yeah, so the first part is a little bit easier than the second part. So what's being done to make sure that we don't dip into our principal is we're working very intentionally right now to get our budget to the right size where we will only be spending based on the tithing, the income that we receive, not touching the principal of our endowments. the question of how we will replenish our endowments is a little more complicated and probably beyond my current level of knowledge. So what I know that we're committing to is not touching those right now. I know that the value of those endowments is complicated. So it's based on a number of factors, including the assessed value of the land that is the primary investment vehicle that we have right now in our endowments. There is still a great deal of hope that the value of those endowments will increase. But we've gotten to a point where we couldn't count on that happening quickly. And so here we are. But I would say watch for more information coming from the presiding bishopric on the status of that those endowments. I know that that is something that they are talking about right now. So there will be more news on that.
Thank you. All right, so our second and last question of the night, and at this point I'd like to let people know about the next thing that's coming up so you can start to mull it over in your brains, but we're going to have the opportunity, after these two next questions are answered, to share our hopes and dreams for the church moving forward. And so again, that's open to anybody online, anybody who would like to email in their thoughts, call in with their thoughts, send it over GoToMeeting, or speak here in the room. So if we can just begin to mull that over in our brains, things we might want to share. And so our second last question of the night is, a number of church branches have closed and the buildings have been sold. What is the chance of accessing some of that money at this point in time to help with financial problems?
Yeah. So the church has policies on the use of proceeds from the sale of congregational buildings. Dar would be, as the Bishop of Canada, and Steve as the financial officer in Canada West would be the experts here on this panel on that. But in general, if a congregation closes, ceases to exist, and those buildings are sold, the assets from those go to the mission center that the congregation was a part of, and then those monies are available for missional projects within those mission centers. So right now, some of the reserves like that no doubt some of those monies came from the sale of buildings. Some of those monies are allowing us to fund our mission center presidents in Canada East and Canada West Mission Center, and to do other kinds of missional things. Yeah, that money, the tradition we have is that the money kind of goes to the next jurisdictional level and is managed there. So it doesn't, the way we operate right now, it doesn't go directly to helping us solve this kind of world church struggle. It does help us indirectly because, in the last budget restructuring, where World Church said to Canada East and Canada West, do you think you all might have the capacity to fund your mission center presidents locally? The answer was, we think we could try to do that for a while until hopefully we can bridge to where the Canadian endowment fundraising has been successful enough that can kick in and help support those. So, yeah, do you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, most people think I'm probably a pushover and a dumb, but in certain situations I'm a hawk. I have already spoken to the bishopric about the policy of the net proceeds of sale, and I was rebuked because I was looking at it as a possibility. Their feeling is, it really is the monies of the congregations and the people. And they would hope that those people who receiving the net proceeds of the sale of their building, not only would be looking at the missional opportunities that they would still have, but they would also consider donating part of it to the church. And so that is the ask that I am going to be making to all of the congregations in the Canadian Church. I will be asking a little stronger those congregations who have substantial reserves, not only for help with the endowment, not only help with the situation of the church, but to encourage them to take that money and to invest it into missional opportunities that bring people in, give people the opportunity to see what we're doing and to revitalize ourselves. So yes, that money is your money, and despite my wish, the policy will not change at this point.
Thank you. All right, so our last question of the evening, it reads, can we take a moment to describe and discuss about the recent recommended tithing plan submission to invite 6,000 people to contribute $1,000? What is being asked of us, what it looks like, and how it works?
You want me to?
Sure.
So I was going to address this before the evening ended if there was no questions around this, but currently, so I'm talking Canada. I can't speak for the US model. But in Canada, as pastors are aware, there has been a letter that has gone out, which has also had as an attachment to it on the email, the tithing plan. So it's a one-page document that has in there for yourselves to enter in your contributions for the next 4 years. So for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. And what you would give as an increase over your current giving for those next 4 years. That is basically the plan that you would send into the Mission Center, or sort of the Canadian headquarters, and we will utilize that money towards the $6 million. And so basically we're breaking it down so that each person has the option to fill in this form for whatever amounts that they can offer as a one-time gift, as an amount over those next 4 years, that it can be done through your offering. It can be done through the PAT, the pre-authorized transfers in your bank accounts. It can be done through Canada Helps when you go to the website and you can transfer through your Visa or other means. So these allow each person to participate. And the ability of the grassroots to get behind this, whether it's 6,000 people giving $1,000 or 12,000 people giving $500 or any combination of giving, it allows us all to participate in a grassroots effort to try to raise these funds by March 22nd. And so please go to our website where that form is. Your congregations will have it, your pastor. We have mailed it or emailed it out to as many people as we have email addresses. And hopefully, and in fact, if you are sending in a check, call the office and let us know that that check is on the way so that we are assured by March 22nd that we can all participate in the solution for this plan. So I guess from my standpoint, we all can participate, but it takes every single one of us to make this work out.
And I don't want to spoil the grassrootsness of this by talking. I'm probably not very much grassroots when it comes to Community of Christ structure, but I would just say I hope the numbers that were shared tonight were encouraging and not discouraging. I'm amazed at this spontaneous response, and in my experience, spontaneous responses like that have a way of inspiring people who have the capacity to give much more than $1,000 too. So it will be interesting to watch what happens. I don't know. I was just going to say too, if you're looking for information on this and you're friends on Facebook with David Donahue, go to David Donahue's Facebook page, and he's posting and reposting this invitation about every 25 minutes. So you can find there very recently all the information on this this effort. Thank you, David Donahue.
Can I say one more?
Yes, of course.
So I just want you to thank and acknowledge the support of Community Place, which has allowed all of this technology to enable us tonight to share this across Canada. There's about 10 or more people involved in facilitating chats and emails and phone calls, as well as all the speakers and video and everything. So I just want to thank you, and Dan, you've done a wonderful job facilitating this night. Thank you very much. I just wanted to give him a hand.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to jump in there. That's a good lead-in for me. I also want to thank Canada East, Community Place Plus, all the people that were involved in putting this together this evening. And I know that you've got another section of this to go, so I don't want to confuse this with a closing. But my presence here is just pure coincidence because I'm here for other meetings through the rest of the week. So it was just opportune. But I want to thank those who put this together and extended the invitation to Canada West to participate. You have to understand that 7 o'clock here is 4 o'clock on the West Coast. And I'm not sure how many people, I saw some names there that suggest to me that there were a number of people from Canada West that were tuning in. So I hope that a number of them have been able to do that and have enjoyed the discussion so far. I want to share a little bit about the reaction that I've had to this whole situation of the funding crunch with the church in Canada West. I had the opportunity actually to be traveling to a number of congregations, primarily in Saskatchewan, over the last 2 weeks after this announcement came out. And I had a spectrum of reactions, both from the people that I was visiting as well as people raising questions and so on over email. Some of it was, oh, another financial crisis, tell me something new. Wasn't there just one last year, and by the way, wasn't there one like 5 or 10 years ago, and so on. And to some extent that's true, and they weren't trying to be cynical, but they were simply pointing out the fact that we've been through this before. And the difference, certainly for me, is that last year we went through what was presented anyway as a $3 million cut to the World Church's budget, and it was a substantial and very painful situation for the church to deal with. And this year we're talking of something over $6 million. So it's certainly a difference in magnitude, and the church leadership will do what they can with those numbers and with assets and resources available to them to minimize the impact, but there's no question that we will see it and we will feel it and we will hear about it as time progresses. Some people, and you saw it in some of the questions, particularly early on, that were quite challenging, of people asking, so how did this happen? Being suspicious of why now, and how come we didn't see this coming? And then also the last couple of days, you may remember that there was the original announcement about 2 weeks ago with President Veazey and Acting Bishop Stacey Cram and their presentations, and Scott Murphy making a presentation as well. All of that got circulated to the church. And then sort of this, what we've come to refer to as this grassroots effort seemed to take hold, and we started to send out one announcement about that, and then another announcement, and then this came up, and we sent another announcement about this, and so I got the word back from somebody yesterday that said, Steve, this is getting to be a little bit of a hard sell now, what's up? And yet, despite all of those concerns and all of those issues with people who were critical of the situation with the church, Every one of those persons have ultimately ended their communication with me with an expression of love for the church, and of course we will help in whatever way we can. And that's something that I think Art has been reinforcing for us as well. And I want to just mention a couple of particular situations, of one smaller congregation in Canada West that contacted me with an assurance that they would be increasing their monthly contributions to World Church by $100 a month. And then I had another person who was probably not sure if this person is in that young adult category or maybe just beyond that young adult category, under or over 70, not positive, who asked me to send to her a PAT form. She is going to, for the first time, complete a PAT form and make a particular monthly commitment on her own individual behalf that is above and beyond what she has been giving through her own congregation. I am certainly both encouraged and a little humbled at the response that has been coming forward. It remains to be seen what the total impact will be by whatever, the 22nd of March, or if there's any leeway on that in the end in terms of the church's decisions by the end of this month. But I think that it speaks well of the church. I think it speaks well of the church's future. And I think it speaks well of the members and the commitment and the love that people have for this organization and for their God.
Thank you all for that. So I just wanted to mention briefly along the same vein of how much support we have here tonight. We had over 120 people connect tonight to participate in this evening. And I know it's kind of hard to tell in here when we're a couple group gathered in here, and then there's been groups online, but altogether we've made up more than 120 people interested and devoted to tonight and wanting to be a part of this conversation. So I appreciate your honesty and your openness with all the questions that came forward. You took them all in stride. And so as we move forward tonight, we want to switch gears a little bit and express some of our hopes and dreams for the church moving forward. And we'd like to keep this, make sure that you're keeping your thoughts maybe to a sentence or two each. We'd like to summarize our thoughts very easily so that we can get through as many people as possible who'd like to speak. So maybe take a moment or so to think about what it is that you'd like to say. We have the microphone here, so if people would like to walk up and speak, it looks like Alf is raring and ready to go, and same with Russ. And as usual, we'll have also the chat section available in GoToMeeting, and I'll read those out. If you would like to share in the chat section, you can just write, "I would like to share," and we can unmute you on GoToMeeting so you can speak. Again, there's also the option of email, communityplaceplus@gmail.com, as well as our phone number, which is 416-845-5003. So lots of different avenues for us to share our hopes and dreams, and it looks like Russ won the arm wrestle. Okay, so Russ will kick us off.
As a revitalization minister, I need to share that I am very optimistic and excited about our future. 1 week from this Friday, for those who are interested in learning more about being LDS seeker friendly, there is some training going on at Kirkland, so some of us are going for that. April 16th, we're going to have training in Scarborough, locally. And also locally, already we have 2 meetup groups for LDS seekers, and there are other groups that will be forming very soon as well. So the potential is absolutely staggering.
I just wanted to share the excitement and, just kind of go over that imagery that we heard at the beginning with a cup overflowing and us needing waiters. And I want us to maybe edit that a little bit, that we don't get waiters, that we take our shoes off and dance in the overflow. Because when you look around, in the ministry that we're involved in, the young people getting ownership in the mission of the church is so exciting that we do want to dance in the rain or in the waters that are flowing. Thank you.
Okay, we had a request from, is it Roslyn? Rosalind on GoToMeeting, so if we could have her unmuted, she would like to share with us.
She's unmuted.
She's unmuted.
You're unmuted now. If you'd like to do a sound test, just ask if we can hear you. Perhaps you muted yourself if you want to check your...
No, she's unmuted.
Muted my own mic.
Oh, there we are. Okay, you're good to go.
There goes 30 seconds. I just want to say that delightful things, I think abundant living that comes with controlling our money from the spiritual practice of discipline, of tithing, though. Thank you, Art, for sharing those wonderful misunderstandings of tithing. They were very similar to what I heard as well. So I think that our young people are actually seeking, and I'm one of those young adults, under 70. I think we're seeking that assistance. So thank you for the opportunity to share, and I will now mute myself.
Thank you, Rosalind. All right, Troy here wanted to share, so we'll invite him here.
As a revitalization minister working in Barrie, and just having the opportunity to be involved in the launch just only 2 short months ago, and seeing the group of people, the communities that are out there that, sorry, not close enough, the community of people and that are out there, and the response to the model that we are engaging in is so encouraging, that if we will just find the opportunities to see the common ground that we have with folks and strike up a conversation to create the entry points that will build a relationship with people, we will find ourselves in such a depth of a position with them that the relationship will carry itself to where God wants it to go. I'm seeing that in 2 short months. There are satellite places and groups popping up all over the place, and interest from folks who just are looking for something that's new, that's modern, a new way of expressing their faith and their belief and what they're searching for. It is out there, and I'm excited and hopeful for it.
I was told I had to come up again, just to clarify a point of time dates for the Latter Estate Seeker training. So I don't know which one, so I'll give you both. Kirtland Temple, in Kirtland, it is 1 week from this Friday. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday is doing more practical stuff. And then in Scarborough, which is sort of Toronto, is April the 16th. It is a 1-day workshop, and I believe food is being provided for that one too. So we really encourage people to attend either or both of those.
Hello. I joined the church actually in 2010 after an awful lot of study of where the church was at, where the church was going, what was going on. My background is in history and as a historian, and it was very, very clear already by that time. You've already gone through, as some of the members were remembering, didn't we already have this financial, I guess I'm not being seen. I'm off the camera. Didn't we already have this financial catastrophe again and again and again? And part of it is been because of this long-term demographic decline that has occurred in the church in terms of active membership within the legacy area. So just to say, the area that pays for the ministry through tithing, which is to say that where the church has been established for more than 4 generations, like the U.S. and Canada. And yet, one of the reasons why I joined and wanted to commit my life to what this church is doing is because of how amazing what the church has built to begin with. So this community that's been built, and then also the incredible capacity I could see of God to work with this community to regrow it out, and how that really exists because of this population that really wants what we already have. And so I jumped in, we're talking about rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. I have just come on board the ship because of where this ship is going. And so I know that there's been a lot of times members think to themselves, well, aren't we just going to throw this in and we're throwing good money after bad, and won't we have another crisis very soon? I think rather that the vision ahead is really amazing and wonderful, and there will be all kinds of, in some ways, because the size of the church is quite small to begin with, it isn't really a big problem. This is a problem that we can wrestle with. We only need to invite in a few 10,000, let's say, tithe-paying members, which is really quite doable. And so really there's been about, I've talked through different online communities, thousands of people have heard about the church through just talking about it, and 100 maybe have joined. And all we need is a couple thousand tithe-paying members and we're fine. So in other words, this is a very doable problem. And I think that all we need right now is a little bit of battening down the hatches and things like that, because really there is a very serious problem right now, but the future isn't one of continual decline. Actually, the future is very exciting. So.
I just want to let everyone know that we actually have a new congregation this month in Canada, Ontario, which is the first in I don't know how long. So that's exciting, and we're on track this year to probably initiate 20 or more groups in coffee shops, which each has 10 or more people. So there is a lot of people who are finding Community of Christ in new ways.
There you go.
When we talk about hopes and dreams, my hopes and dreams are that this church can touch as many people as possible. That I have seen it happen in my children's friends that have not ever seen unconditional love. And I'm forever saying that sometimes we forget the treasure that we have because we've always had it. And when you see what this organization is, in the eyes of someone who's not always had that you just have to share it. And my dream is that we will share it, and we'll forget about being the Rivers Church because we're on the streets. And we'll say, no, I'm a member of Community of Christ, and this is what my church stands for. And be happy and proud of that.
Thank you. So I think we'll give one more opportunity if anybody else feels that they'd like to share.
I'm going to talk to you as a person and a member of the Community of Christ rather than on this big grand group level. I've been a member of this church for, an actual member for about 7 years, involved for about 10. We don't have to think that we need to solve the world's problems in 5 minutes. It can be as simple as saying, you know what, why don't you come to dinner? I don't think there's been a week, we've been in Barrie, and that's been about 7 now, that we haven't had someone over for dinner during the week. It's that simple. It can be a young person, an old person. I will cook until, we can't pay our gas bill. And I will color at our coloring and coffee and conversations until my hands fall off. And I, too, will be filling in a PAT form for the first time.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so with that, I'm going to send it over to Art for our closing message. and then we'll share in a hymn.
So I really have nothing to add to the amazing and encouraging things that have just been shared. I am more committed than I ever have been to this amazing vision that is Community of Christ. We have not squandered our money. We have invested it in reinventing ourselves a little bit, in working through amazing challenges like national conferences. We have found ourselves in a position of potential so enormous to live this amazing mission of Jesus Christ, which for me is about this radical love and grace and forgiveness and acceptance that it is so amazing that it makes no sense. But we have had a taste of that. And we have the opportunity to show it to others. And people may be a little bit confused at first if we're doing it right. People may even grumble a little bit that should we really be hanging out with those kinds of people? Or should we really be, dressing like that to go to church? But the potential is there for that crazy, radical, unconditional, worth of all persons, unity in diversity, God continuing to pour out through revelation more about God's amazing, awesome, unconditional, radical grace and acceptance and transformation. It is unbelievable. It's going to take right now a little bit more craziness to get us through this financial challenge. One of the scriptures that we just skirted around last week to tell the story about the Good Samaritan, not the Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, the lost son, in the 15th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. One of the scriptures we skirted around was the story of the woman and the lost coin. I love that story. It's, the story of the woman who has a few coins. She loses one of them in her house at night. They're silver coins. These little silver coins that the Hebrew woman would have been worth much less than our penny, which we don't even have anymore. And so what does she do? In the night, in the dark, because she's got to find that coin, she lights an oil lamp and burns more oil than the coin was worth in the first place. And then what does she do? Well, she finds the coin at night. She could have waited until morning to look in the daylight, but no. She had to look now because it's so important. And she finds the coin. And then the next day, she throws a party for all her friends. And now she's really spending way more money than that one lost silver coin. It may take a little bit of that kind of craziness, because it's not really, that story is not really about coins at all. It's about God's crazy, wild love for every one of us. It may take a little bit of that craziness with our finances. I agree with Rosalind, we need to be reasonable with our finances, but it may take us a little bit of craziness, realizing that it is worth it for us to do this amazing thing that we have before us. And if we will dare as we find in the Book of Alma and the Book of Mormon, if we will dare to experiment, just having a particle of faith, God is ready to grow that into something astonishing. So I'm hanging on for the ride, and I look forward to enjoying a bunch of that ride right here in Canada. So let's do it together.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to share in a hymn together. If you'll turn your hymnals to number 278. Our piano player had to take off, but we do have a piano recording that we're going to play for you all tonight. Before we move into the closing part of our meeting here today, I just wanted to say thanks to Kerry, Steve, Art, and Dar for being so open and honest with us today, and for answering all of the questions that came in. We have had a couple come in now, but we're going to forward them on to you and just have those people know that they will be answered, and you'll get those answers from the four of you up front. So I just really wanted to thank you all, and if we could give them a round of applause for their time and commitment. And thank you to everybody who joined online on Ustream, who called in with their questions. It's wonderful to see so many people dedicated and wanting to be a part of this evening, so I want to thank everybody for that. All right, and without further ado, we'll move on to our hymn, and that's number 278.
Let's stand for this.
by whose knowledge the depths are broken up and the clouds drop down the dew. We yield you hearty thanks and praise for the return of seed time and harvest, for the increase of the ground and the gathering in of its fruits, and for all the other blessings of life that you have bestowed upon us. And we beseech you, give us just a sense of these great mercies, such as they may appear in our lives by a humble, holy, and obedient walk before you all our days. We are standing on the precipice of unknown tomorrows. We turn our thoughts and eyes toward you, Father, seeking guidance for the journey we are called upon to make into the future. In our weakness, give us strength. In our fear, give us courage. In our frailties, grant us stability as we continue our onward journey. We know that you have revealed yourself to us in Jesus Christ. We have set out on a path to follow him. Grant that no obscuring cloud of doubt or faithlessness may turn us aside from the journey that we started so long ago. May we truly find the treasures of your grace that await us as we dedicate our treasures along the way with the Lord of life into the unknown. Bless each of our leaders in their dedication to serve. Bless each of us as we consider the immediate needs of our beloved community. In the worthy name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Even so, amen.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I want to give a final thank you to those online who joined us. And for those here at GTA West, there are coffee and drinks in the back room if you have a minute to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, GTA West.